Hello, this is Crystal Racing here, talking about the different design philosophies between Ferrari and Mercedes for this year's 2019 design regulations, which have been aimed at improving racing, overtaking and following other cars in the dirty air. As you can see from the Mercedes, they have an outboard design, which means that the car has its highest and steepest bits of the wing at the outside tips, where the flaps meet at what is called the end plate, the vertical structure at the outside of the wing. This generates suction or low pressure outboard. Air from the middle of the car will travel towards this area of low pressure. It is called outwashing, i.e. sending air outwards away from the car in order to control the tyre wake, whilst Ferrari have gone for an inboard style, meaning that more airflow is loaded in the middle of the wing and quite unloaded at the tips. On the wing, you can see the highest point of the flaps is at their inside edge, and they slope downwards towards the inside of the car. This draws air towards the centre and results in an in-washing airflow compared to Mercedes' outwashing effect. Now, of course, it needs to be explained why Ferrari tried to go down this route, despite the fact that, of course, as you've probably known, of course, Mercedes have finished 1-2 at the first 4 races. One advantage of reducing the download at the tips of the wing, what we call backing out the tips, is that airflow structures generated there will be much less stressed. Air near the surface of a wing, what we call the boundary layer, likes to travel towards low pressure, which speeds it up, but does not like having to go back into high pressure, which will slow it down. The air will only put up with a certain amount of speeding up and slowing down before eventually it gets stressed and won't hang on to the surface anymore. Once this happens, you have what we call stall. Instead of a nice clean downforce producing wing, you end up with a load of wake or dirty air and much less downforce. Actually, the wings themselves don't give the aerodynamicists much of an issue. The slots between the flaps help the aerodynamicists out there. It's the end plate which is difficult, as thanks to the new regulations enforcing the end plates to be completely flat and smooth with no curvature on them whatsoever. All the aerodynamicists can do is reduce the amount of speeding up and slowing down the air at the surface can do by backing out the tips. But the two benefits of Ferrari's design is reduced tendency to stall, which might produce a car which is more predictable to drive. And the more predictable a car is, the greater the driver's confidence, which, of course, as we all know, of course, that is kind of contrary to what both Leclerc and Vettel have been saying about the car. I mean, despite the fact that, of course, there's been a lot of articles saying that Ferrari have produced a more predictable car, that doesn't seem to be what their drivers have been saying. However, so the reason for this is that a more predictable car with more consistent downforce but slightly less maximum load will end up being quicker than a car that in theory that has more downforce, which is the Mercedes, but cannot generate the maximum load consistently. That's because the inherent nervousness of the peaky approach means the driver does not have as much confidence to push to the limit, as he fears he might lose control. In addition, the vortices, little tornadoes of spinning air which are generated at the end plate and which are crucial to the car's overall performance, can be drawn inside the tyre to help the wake. Where did Ferrari go wrong? Where have Ferrari have gone wrong? And it does appear to be the balance of the front and the rear downforce has been something that Ferrari have been struggling to balance out properly. They are compensating for a lack of downforce generated from the front wing at Ferrari from having to exploit enlarging the barge boards, which is, to many experts' eyes, is an attempt to make up the front downforce which their front wing cannot produce, whilst Mercedes, on the other hand, have reduced the size of their barge boards in order to help with producing more rear downforce at their diffuser. So it appears to be that Mercedes have a philosophy where they're trying to get more airflow towards the diffuser at the rear of the car, and of course, according to the secret aerodynamicists, the Ferrari philosophy has been giving them issues in terms of bouncing the car from the front to the rear, but also limiting the total amount of downforce it can produce. And of course, to add to a further issue is the fact that Mercedes, the design of the rake of the cars is very different between the Ferrari and the Mercedes. Ferrari have a high rake on their car where the height of the rear ride height at the back is higher than what Mercedes have got on their car, which is described as being a low rake design. And a lot of Ferrari's philosophy is down to the fact that they have been following a lot of principles that Adrian Newey, the technical director at Red Bull, has often followed in designing the rake of his cars throughout the decades. A low rake design means that the floor of the car is sitting very flat. A high one, and the back of the floor is one that is being raised a long way off the ground, which is the case for the Ferrari car. Now, part of the reason why Ferrari have a high rake is because of the fact that their car has a very, very big area for its diffuser, and because of the fact that the diffuser is very big at the rear of the Ferrari, due to, of course, the higher rate facilitating it, it means that they don't have to focus on trying to get the barge boards to and the rear and the underneath of the front end of their car to push more air into the diffuser, whilst Mercedes, of course, have much smaller barge boards and of course a much smaller diffuser due to the fact that they have a low rake in the design of their car, meaning that there is less air being pulled under the floor. Of course, it does appear to be that Mercedes' low rake design is pretty much designed at creating a smaller gap between the sides of the floor and the ground to impede the air from going underneath the car. However, Ferrari's high rake design is designed at managing rear tyre wake, which is of course crucial in terms of managing tyre wear at the rear of the car, which is something that Sebastian Vettel is well known for struggling with. And tyre wake is essentially the churning turbulent air found behind the tyre, which is likened to water behind a boat. Much like water, tyre wake will spread out behind the body that creates it. This is a problem because it has an effect of blocking air exiting the diffuser, which is an essential component of Vettel's driving style, which he needs a lot of rear downforce and stability. Whilst, on the contrary, on a low rate car, the floor sits lower against the tyre face. And of course, this did affect Hamilton very heavily in Australia when he suffered floor damage, as his car didn't have as much movement to go up and down for the movement of the wheel, and the gap between the tyre, the gap between the tyre and the floor was allowed the car less manoeuvred in order to manage the amount of damage Lewis had. And of course, Mercedes have a philosophy of where they are very much the knife edge in terms of tuning their aerodynamic devices because of their low rake, whilst Ferrari's design philosophy of using a high rake has their floor raised a lot higher in the air and a lot nearer to the circular tyre face, which has become vertical given that the movement of the wheel up and down won't make the gap between the tyre and the floor open up quite as much. So I have attempted to explain as well as I can throughout this video the technical differences between Ferrari and Mercedes, and it does appear to be Mercedes have been using a very unique design philosophy, which in particular in regards to their low rake is something that has been going against the orthodox approach, which has been popularised by the success of Adrian Newey, who has been using high rake cars, which Ferrari have been following in an attempt to overhaul Mercedes in being title champions this season. But of course, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe to Crystal Racing, and I'll see you again next time.